There comes a point in every person's life when they begin to recognize the weight of the people around them. Some people carry light, they lift your spirit, they remind you of who you are, and they speak faith into your dreams, but others carry heaviness, the kind that drains your peace, clouds your clarity, and makes you question your worth. These are the toxic people who wear masks of concern but breathe doubt into your confidence. And the truth is, you cannot walk in peace while holding on to those who profit from your pain. Peace is not found in the absence of people, it's found in the presence of boundaries. You have to stop giving access to those who misuse your kindness. Every time you try to explain yourself to someone who's already decided to misunderstand you, you trade your peace for nothing. You can't expect peace from people who thrive on confusion. You can't find understanding in a heart that's never known empathy. You can't heal while standing in the same space that keeps reopening your wounds. Some people will never clap for you because your progress exposes their stagnation. It's not that you did anything wrong, it's that your growth reminds them of what they refuse to grow through. That's why you must learn to stop looking for validation in environments that no longer value your voice. The smartest thing you can do is to quietly walk away and let silence speak the truth that arguments never could. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. There's wisdom in letting go. You must understand that your peace is your responsibility. The world will test it, people will challenge it, and circumstances will try to destroy it, but it's yours to guard. The smartest people aren't those who can win every debate. They're the ones who've learned that some battles aren't worth the energy. Every time you try to prove your purity to someone committed to misunderstanding you, you lose a piece of yourself. Stop defending your light to people who benefit from your darkness. Toxic people don't just hurt you with words. They hurt you by constantly making you doubt your own reality. They twist truth until you question your own intentions. They act like victims while causing destruction. But here's the secret. You don't have to fight them to be free from them. Freedom comes from distance, not destruction. The smartest way to deal with see people is to remove their power over your emotions. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding the drama that keeps you stuck. When you stop engaging with their negativity, you'll feel something unfamiliar, peace. That silence that once felt uncomfortable will become your greatest weapon. Peace is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the ability to say, I don't need to win this argument to win my life. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you are teaching yourself emotional strength. You're proving that you no longer need their chaos to feel seen. You have to understand that some people are addicted to conflict. They can't stand peace because peace forces them to face themselves. That's why they try to provoke you, because your calm exposes their chaos. Your stability reminds them of the instability they refuse to confront. So instead of letting them pull you back into that cycle, stand still. Stand in your peace. Let their noise echo while you move forward in silence. Detachment doesn't mean you hate them, it means you love yourself enough to stop letting them control your mood. It means you recognize that peace is sacred and not everyone deserves a seat at that table. You can pray for people from a distance. You can forgive them without inviting them back into your life. You can wish them well and still walk away. That's not cruelty, that's maturity. There's power in emotional control. When you can stay calm while being provoked, you've already won. Toxic people feed off your reaction. They want you emotional, frustrated, and unbalanced. They want to steal your focus because focus is your fuel. When you stop reacting, you take away their source of control. They can't manipulate what they can't move. You don't need to announce your boundaries to prove you have them. Just live by them. Quiet distance speaks louder than loud explanations. Every time you pull your energy back from the wrong people, you attract the right ones. Every time you stop chasing validation, you start creating peace. Every time you choose stillness over struggle, you rise higher in wisdom. You were never meant to live drained. You were never created to constantly fight for your own worth. You were designed to walk in peace, to create from clarity, and to love from overflow. But you can't do that if you're surrounded by those who take more than they give. It's time to protect your energy like it's your inheritance, because it is. Peace is a gift from God, and you are responsible for where you spend it. The reason it feels hard to walk away from toxic people is because you still see their potential. You keep hoping they'll change, that they'll wake up and become who you believe they could be. But potential without accountability is just a promise that never shows up. You can't help someone who refuses to see their own reflection. Sometimes love means letting go so they can face the lesson life's been trying to teach them. Protecting your peace doesn't mean building walls, it means building gates. Gates that open for growth and close for confusion. It means surrounding yourself with people who feed your faith, not your frustration. When you shift your circle, you shift your atmosphere. And when you shift your atmosphere, you shift your entire life. The smartest way to deal with toxic people isn't revenge, reaction, or resistance. It's release. Let go with grace. Walk away with wisdom. And never apologize for choosing your peace over their poison. Because the peace you protect today becomes the foundation for the purpose you'll fulfill tomorrow. Discernment is one of the most powerful skills you can ever develop. It's the ability to see things for what they are, not for what you wish they were. When dealing with toxic people, you can't afford to look through the lens of emotion. You must look through the lens of truth. Some people don't lie with their words, they lie with their patterns. They'll apologize and repeat the same behavior. They'll promise to change and still operate from the same poison. That's why discernment is not about hearing what someone says. It's about watching what someone consistently does. The reason many people stay trapped in toxic relationships, whether friendships, family ties, or work environments, is because they keep trying to negotiate peace with people who benefit from chaos. You can't convince someone to stop being toxic when toxicity is how they feel powerful. That's why discernment matters. It helps you see the game before you play it. It helps you recognize that not every invitation deserves your attendance, and not every conversation deserves your energy. When you learn to discern, you stop reacting emotionally and start responding intentionally. You realize that not every attack does. Irv's defense. Not every insult needs a reply. Sometimes the greatest wisdom is in silence, because silence is not weakness, it's strategy. When you stay silent, you confuse those who expected your reaction. You starve their need for control and deny them the satisfaction of your anger. Discernment teaches you how to pick your battles, and more importantly, how to walk away from the ones that don't lead to peace. Toxic people are often masters of manipulation. They twist truth, rewrite stories, and play the victim so convincingly that you start questioning your own reality. But discernment cuts through deception. It helps you see when someone's kindness is really control, when their advice is actually criticism dressed in concern, and when their help is a hidden attempt to keep you dependent. When your spirit is awake, manipulation loses its grip. You don't need to argue with a toxic person to prove your point. You don't need to expose them for everyone to see. Time will reveal what truth already knows. Discernment gives you patience, the kind that says, I don't have to fight this. I just have to stay still long enough for the truth to expose itself. The truth always has a way of rising, even when lies try to bury it. When you're around people who constantly make you feel small, question your worth, or doubt your direction, that's not humility, that's manipulation. The right people won't compete with your light, they'll complement it. But toxic people need you to shrink so they can shine. Discernment helps you identify that. It reminds you that love should never cost you your self-respect, and peace should never require your silence. Some people think wisdom is knowing how to argue well, but real wisdom is knowing when silence says more than words ever could. Discernment helps you sense when someone is pulling you into a trap, disguised as a conversation. You can feel it, that subtle shift when a discussion becomes an attack, when curiosity becomes criticism. In those moments, wisdom whispers, walk away, because your peace is too valuable to waste on proving yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Discernment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's the ability to separate compassion from compromise. You can forgive someone without giving them access to you. You can show kindness without becoming their victim again. You can walk in love and still walk away. Because discernment teaches you that love without boundaries turns into self-betrayal. And once you betray your own peace, you start living for someone else's approval instead of your own alignment. You must learn to recognize emotional traps. Toxic people love to create guilt loops. They hurt you, then make you feel guilty for being hurt. They criticize you, then call you too sensitive. They neglect you, then accuse you of being distant. Discernment helps you step back and see those loops for what they are, control mechanisms. Once you see the pattern, you break its power. You no longer dance to the rhythm of manipulation. You start moving to the melody of peace. When you practice discernment, you stop labeling everything as love. Some relationships exist to teach you what love isn't. They exist to awaken your boundaries, not to destroy your faith in people. Toxic connections are classrooms. Painful ones, yes, but necessary for growth. Each time you discern who someone truly is, you get closer to understanding who you are not supposed to be anymore. Discernment makes you stronger without making you harder. It keeps your heart soft, but your mind sharp. Stop taking everything personally, because you realize people can only give what they carry. If they carry pain, they'll give pain. If they carry peace, they'll give peace. So instead of reacting to every insult, you start recognizing it as a reflection of their inner storm, not your worth. That's maturity. When you discern, you stop falling for charm and start looking for character. You stop believing in words and start measuring consistency. A toxic person can sound spiritual, kind, and humble, but discernment reveals the energy beneath their speech. It tells you whether their presence brings calm or confusion. And when you sense confusion, that's your cue to create space, because peace and confusion cannot coexist. The smartest way to deal with toxic people is not through confrontation, but through comprehension. Understand who they are, understand what they seek, and understand what they drain. Once you comprehend, you can conserve. You can conserve your energy, your emotions, your focus. Discernment allows you to manage your emotional economy. You stop overspending your peace on relationships that give no return. Sometimes discernment will feel lonely. You'll walk away from. The smartest people in life are not those who win every argument, but those who understand that peace is far more valuable than being right. There's a kind of wisdom that grows when you stop chasing the need to prove yourself to people who have already decided to misunderstand you. Some people are not looking for truth. They're looking for reaction. They don't want resolution, they want attention. And every time you take the bait, you give them what they came for, your energy, your focus, your peace. Learning when not to engage is a sign of maturity. The strongest person in the room is not always the loudest, but the one who refuses to be moved by noise. You have to understand that toxic people feed off your reaction. Your anger is their confirmation that they still control you. But when you stop reacting, when you learn to respond with silence or calm truth, you take away the very power they thought they had. There's no greater confusion to a toxic person than your peace. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to explain yourself to everyone who questions you. Sometimes the smartest answer is no answer at all. Silence is not surrender, it's STR, agi. It's the art of letting your calm speak louder than your defense. Because when you refuse to play their game, you make them play against themselves. Not every battle is meant to be fought, especially those that require you to lower your character to match someone else's chaos. You can't win by becoming what you're trying to escape. The goal is not to defeat toxic people. The goal is to remain untouched by their poison. Some people only exist to test your growth, to see if you've learned that reaction is not always power. Real power is peace that cannot be provoked. You have to stop wasting your strength proving your intentions to people who are committed to doubting you. They'll twist your words, question your motives, and call your peace prideful, but you owe no explanation to those who refuse to listen with understanding. Your purpose requires your focus, and focus dies in constant argument. When you're constantly defending yourself, you have no energy left to build yourself. That's why wisdom teaches you to withdraw from conversations that don't lead to clarity or growth. Sometimes walking away from an argument doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise enough to protect your energy. Not every moment deserves your voice. Not every situation deserves your explanation. Some people argue not because they want to understand, but because they want to dominate. They thrive on confusion because confusion gives them control. But when you choose calm over chaos, you take that control back. You must remember this. Reaction is a currency, and toxic people know how to spend it. Every emotional outburst, every defensive reply, every attempt to prove them wrong gives them a return on their manipulation. But when you stay centered, when you stay grounded, they lose access to your energy. They can't pull you into confusion because you've decided to stand still in clarity. You begin to see their behavior as a mirror of their own pain, not as a reflection of your worth. Emotional intelligence is learning that peace is more productive than revenge. There's no need to match their energy when you can rise above it. Every time you respond in anger, you lower yourself to their level. But when you respond with calmness, you elevate the entire conversation or end it altogether. Not everything needs a response. Sometimes your peace is the loudest statement you can make. You don't prove strength by dominating others. You prove strength by mastering yourself. When someone tries to revoke you, they're testing your emotional discipline. If they can control how you feel, they can control how you move. But when you master your emotions, you master the moment. And in mastering the moment, you preserve your power. That's why peace is not passive. It's the most aggressive form of self-control. Silence doesn't mean you're ignoring the situation. It means you're choosing to rise above it. You're refusing to let their bitterness contaminate your clarity. You're making a conscious decision to prioritize your peace over your pride. Pride wants to prove them wrong, but peace wants to protect your energy. And once you understand the difference, your entire life changes. You begin to see that not all battles are meant to be fought. Some are meant to be walked away from gracefully. Wisdom will whisper to you when emotion tries to scream. It will tell you not every fire needs your attention. Some fires burn out faster when you stop feeding them. The more you argue, the more oxygen you give to the flame. But when you stay silent, the fire dies from lack of food. That's what emotional maturity looks like. Understanding that silence can be the most powerful weapon in your arsenal. There is a deep strength in stillness. It takes power to remain calm when everything around you is trying to provoke you. It takes wisdom to pause when others expect you to explode. But in that pause, you find clarity. In that pause, you hear truth. In that pause, you remind yourself that no one can steal your peace unless you hand it to them. When you stop giving energy to drama, you create space for destiny. You can't build purpose while you're trapped in petty conflicts. Toxic people are distractions disguised as battles. They make you believe that you're standing up for yourself when really you're being pulled down into their level. The smartest way to win against them is not to fight. It's to focus. People who are truly at peace don't argue to be heard. They live to be aligned. They don't fight for validation. They stand in truth. Their calm is not indifference. It's confidence. They've realized that no one's opinion can define their identity. And that realization makes them unshakable. When you refuse to react, you reclaim your authority. You Remy. Circles that used to feel familiar, you'll distance yourself from people who used to feel close. But what you're really doing is creating room for alignment. God doesn't remove people to hurt you. He removes people to heal you. And discernment is the tool that helps you recognize that divine exchange when it's happening. When you live with discernment, you start experiencing a new kind of freedom. You no longer chase validation. You no longer explain your boundaries. You no longer feel obligated to fix what others keep breaking. You walk in quiet confidence, knowing that you don't need to control every situation. You just need to see it for what it is and move accordingly. And in that movement, peace becomes your strategy, and wisdom becomes your protection. You've got to stop trying to turn toxic relationships into peaceful ones, because some people are not looking for healing. They're looking for control. They don't want to grow. They want to drain. They don't want understanding. They want dominance. And the more you try to fix them, the more they use your compassion as their weapon. You can't build peace in an environment that feeds off chaos. Peace requires cooperation, but toxicity only knows competition. You can't build connection with someone who's addicted to conflict. You can't plant roses in soil that refuses to stop growing thorns. No matter how many times you water it, no matter how much sunlight you give, no matter how gentle your hands are, it still cuts you. That's what it feels like when you keep trying to nurture toxic people. You keep hoping your love will heal them, your patience will soften them, your loyalty will change them, but their roots were never planted in growth. They were planted in bitterness, and you cannot change someone who has chosen to stay the same. Some people are addicted to chaos because peace makes them uncomfortable. Peace forces self-reflection, and reflection forces accountability. Toxic PE. Opal don't want accountability. They want distraction. They want someone to blame so they never have to look within. And that's why they pull you into cycles of argument and guilt. Because if you're focused on defending yourself, you'll never notice that they're the problem. The hardest truth to accept is that love doesn't fix dysfunction. Awareness does. You can pour every ounce of love into someone, but if they refuse to see their own damage, your effort becomes exhaustion. You can't heal someone who finds comfort in their wounds. You can't save someone who doesn't believe they need saving. And if you keep trying, you'll lose yourself in the process of trying to rescue someone who's not drowning. They're swimming in their own chaos by choice. Every time you engage with toxic behavior, you give it life. You start explaining what doesn't need explaining, defending what doesn't need defending, and proving what never needed to be proven. That's how toxicity wins, not by power, but by attention. It drains your peace one argument at a time until you forget that silence was an option all along. You can't find freedom while entertaining bondage disguised as loyalty, letting go of tox. I see people doesn't make you cold, it makes you clear. It means you finally realize that not everyone deserves access to your heart. Your peace is not a public playground for other people's pain. You were not created to be an emotional caretaker for someone who refuses to grow. You can love people from a distance. You can forgive them without inviting them back into your space. Love does not require you to live in pain. You can tell when someone is unhealthy for your spirit. The signs are always there. You feel anxious when they call, drained when they leave, and confused when you try to make sense of their words. That's not connection, that's chaos. And yet, you keep trying to justify it because you remember their good moments. But a few moments of kindness don't cancel a pattern of pain. You have to stop measuring relationships by memories and start measuring them by peace. Peaceful people bring clarity. Toxic people bring confusion. Peaceful people make you feel seen. Toxic people make you feel small. Peaceful people correct you in love. Toxic people criticize you in pride. Once you see that difference, you'll stop trying to merge the two. You'll stop thinking you can change them with more love or more patience. Some lessons are meant to be learned through separation, not conversation. You can't save someone who's fighting to stay broken. You can't bring harmony to someone who finds excitement in chaos, and you can't change a person who doesn't think there's anything wrong with their behavior. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you'll stop losing yourself in the name of trying to help them. You have to choose your peace, even if it means walking away from someone you love. Because staying in a toxic environment doesn't prove your strength. It weakens your spirit. There's a quiet kind of strength in release. It takes courage to let go of people you once prayed would stay. It takes faith to believe that peace after them will feel better than chaos with them. But that's the journey. Learning that some connections were meant to teach, not to last. Every toxic relationship is a mirror showing you the parts of yourself that still need healing. The part that craves approval, the part that fears being alone, the part that confuses loyalty with love. Toxic people will always try to rewrite the story when you walk away. They'll call you selfish, cold, ungrateful. They'll twist your peace into pride and your distance into arrogance, but don't fall for it. Their words are just another attempt to pull you back into their cycle. They can't stand losing control because control is how they survive. The moment you stop responding, they lose the grip they once had. Every time you choose to disengage, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You begin to feel lighter, freer, calmer. You start noticing the small joys that chaos once blinded you to, the quiet mornings, the gentle moments, the peace that doesn't need explanation. You realize that the loudest noise in your life wasn't the world. It was the people you kept around who thrived on conflict. And now that they're gone, the silence feels like healing. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones fought in your own heart, the part that still wants to fix what hurt you. But healing doesn't come from reopening closed doors. It comes from walking away from them. You must remind yourself that letting go is not failure. It's wisdom. It's knowing that peace will cost you people, but it will never cost you purpose. When you finally stop trying to turn toxic relationships into peaceful ones, you open into yourself that your peace is your responsibility, not someone else's permission. The smartest way to deal with toxic people is not to prove them wrong. It's to stop giving them the stage. Once you stop performing for their approval or defending against their accusations, you rise above the game entirely. And from that higher place, nothing they say can touch your spirit because your peace is already spoken louder than your words ever could. The door for real peace to find you. You create space for people who love with honesty, speak with kindness, and build with consistency. You stop chasing people who drain you, and you start attracting people who pour into you. Because when your spirit is clear, your energy becomes magnetic. There's no need to fight or prove anything. Just step back and let time reveal the truth. The ones who are meant to walk with you will bring peace, not confusion. The ones who weren't will fall away naturally. And in that space, you'll learn that the smartest way to deal with toxic people was never about changing them. It was always about protecting the peace that helps you become the person you were always meant to be. So here's the truth. The smartest way to deal with toxic people is not by reacting emotionally, but by responding spiritually and strategically. You have to understand that emotion is their weapon. They want you angry, defensive, and distracted. Every time you react, they win a little more control over your peace. But when you rise above emotion and respond from a higher place of understanding, they lose their grip on your spirit. They can't manipulate what they can't move. That's why it's so important to anchor yourself in calmness before you decide what to say or do. Discernment gives you the power to see beyond the surface. Toxic people speak to trigger, not to understand. They'll say things that cut deep, not because they're right, but because they know which words can wound you. And if you respond too quickly, you fall into their trap. But when you pause, breathe, and observe, you shift from reaction to revelation. You start to see their intentions clearly. You start realizing that their words are reflections of their own pain, not your value. That's where true power begins. In stillness, there's strength in silence, because silence forces reflection. When you stop arguing, why? Start thinking. When you stop explaining yourself, you start seeing the truth of the situation. Toxic people thrive on chaos because it keeps you from seeing their patterns. But when you step back and analyze quietly, you'll begin to notice that their behavior repeats itself like a cycle. The same manipulation, the same blame, the same apology that leads nowhere. Responding spiritually means recognizing patterns and choosing peace over participation. A spiritual response doesn't mean letting people walk over you. It means you no longer let them walk through you. You build emotional boundaries so firm that their words bounce off instead of sinking in. You protect your mind with truth. You remind yourself that their opinions are not your identity and their anger is not your responsibility. When you respond from that place of inner grounding, you turn what used to hurt you into a lesson that strengthens you. When you stop reacting, you start redirecting your energy. Every ounce of emotion you used to waste defending yourself becomes fuel for your growth. You take that power back and invest it into your goals, your healing, your purpose. And soon the noise that once distracted you becomes background music to your peace. That's the beauty of spiritual strategy. It teaches you how to turn pain into power without losing your calm. Some people confuse stillness with weakness, but it's the opposite. Stillness is the highest form of discipline. It's easy to scream back, to argue, to try to prove a point, but it takes strength to stay composed while someone else tries to provoke you. It takes mastery to look someone in the eye who's trying to pull you down and smile, knowing they no longer have access to your peace. That's not weakness. That's victory through wisdom. When you respond spiritually, you stop letting ego make your decisions. Ego wants to win arguments, but the spirit wants to win peace. Ego says, I'll show them. Spirit says, I'll outgrow them. Ego reacts to insult, spirit responds to insight. The more you operate from ego, the more power you give to toxic people. But when you operate from spirit, you become untouchable. You no longer fight from emotion. You move with intention. Responding strategically means being intentional with your energy. It means knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, when to step back, and when to move on. It means why. Don't let other people's chaos dictate your timing. You speak when your words can heal, not when they can hurt. You move when peace guides you, not when pride drives you. And that's how you maintain control over your emotional landscape, even when others are trying to throw storms your way. The strategy isn't about changing toxic people. It's about changing how you engage with them. You stop feeding their negativity by refusing to argue. You stop validating their behavior by not explaining yourself over and over. You stop letting their opinions disturb your peace by recognizing that you are not obligated to respond to every criticism. Every time you choose silence over chaos, you take another step toward freedom. Your peace is not a reaction, it's a position. You stand in it like a fortress, unshaken by the noise outside. You decide that no matter what they say or how they behave, you will not let your emotions be dragged into their storm. They can throw words, but you control whether they land. They can start battles, but you decide whether to fight. They can project anger, but you decide whether to absorb it. That's what spiritual strategy looks like. Power with peace, a wise person knows how to move strategically without becoming cold. They don't fight back with hate, they respond with boundaries. They don't seek revenge, they seek release. They understand that true peace doesn't come from getting even, it comes from getting free. Every time you choose understanding over offense, you disarm toxicity without losing your character. That's how you win. Quietly, gracefully, spiritually. When you respond spiritually, you start seeing the pain behind the poison. You begin to understand that toxic people are often broken people who never healed. Their attacks are really projections of their own emptiness. That doesn't mean you excuse their behavior. It means you refuse to internalize it. Compassion doesn't require closeness. It requires wisdom. You can feel sorry for their pain without making it your problem to fix it. Responding strategically also means knowing when to exit completely. Not every situation deserves continued effort. Some people only understand loss. They won't see your value until you're no longer available to absorb their negativity. Walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom in motion. It's you choosing to protect your peace instead of provide. Your point. It's you realizing that silence can teach louder lessons than shouting ever could. The most strategic thing you can do when dealing with toxic people is to shift from reaction to reflection. Before you respond, ask yourself, what do I gain from this? If the answer is nothing, stay silent. If it costs your peace, it's too expensive. When you start living by that principle, you stop losing energy to things that don't build you. You stop letting every word from others penetrate your peace. You start filtering life through wisdom instead of emotion. Responding spiritually and strategically will always separate you from the crowd. It will make you calmer in storms that once shook you. It will make you wiser in situations that used to confuse you. You'll stop being pulled into the noise and start walking in clarity because you've learned the most powerful truth of all. You can't control people, but you can always control your peace, your perspective, and your response. Guarding your purpose is not about building walls around your life. It's about becoming deeply aware of what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Every dream requires a level of protection because distractions are constant. Toxic people will often show up as tests, not because they have power over your purpose, but because they're there to expose whether you've learned to protect it. They come disguised as friends, coworkers, even loved ones who can't celebrate you. And if you don't guard your purpose, their words and energy start to leak into your mind, slowly convincing you that your calling is not as valuable as it truly is. There will always be people who speak doubt over your dreams, not because you're wrong, but because your growth confronts their comfort. The moment you start rising, it challenges their excuses. When you start becoming consistent, it threatens their laziness. When you start believing bigger, it exposes their fear. Guarding your purpose means recognizing that not everyone who claps for you is cheering for you. Some are waiting for you to fail so they can feel comfortable staying the same. And if you're not careful, their energy becomes an invisible chain T. Hat keeps you from moving forward. The more you grow, the more guarded you must become. Not defensive, not paranoid, but discerning. Growth attracts attention, and attention attracts energy. Some will be genuine, others will be draining. Toxic people will always find a way to disguise themselves as supporters until your progress makes them uncomfortable. They'll start questioning your motives, criticizing your confidence, and trying to remind you of who you used to be. But your purpose doesn't live in who you used to be. It thrives in who you're becoming. And that's why guarding your purpose means being okay with being misunderstood. Every time you let negativity distract you, you delay your destiny. Every time you argue with people who don't deserve your words, you trade your peace for validation. Guarding your purpose means becoming unavailable to foolishness. It means saying no without guilt, walking away without explanation, and choosing your mission over meaningless conversations. It's realizing that peace is the oxygen of purpose. Without it, everything suffocates. Toxic people are like leaks in your spiritual pipeline. If you don't seal those leaks, your energy keeps draining into battles that don't matter. Your purpose is divine real estate. You don't allow everyone to walk across it freely. You decide who gets access and who doesn't. Just because someone has history with you doesn't mean they have permission to influence your destiny. Loyalty doesn't mean lifelong access, it means alignment. And when alignment ends, distance becomes protection, not punishment. Guarding your purpose means knowing that your calling is too expensive to waste on conversations that go nowhere and relationships that cost your peace. When you stop entertaining toxicity, your vision becomes clearer. You start seeing that your future requires focus. Every time you get pulled into drama, your focus fragments. And when focus fragments, faith weakens. You start doubting yourself, questioning your abilities, and losing sight of why you started. But the moment you shut down distractions and silence toxic voices, your faith multiplies. The silence that once felt lonely becomes sacred space for clarity. That's the moment your purpose starts to speak louder than the noise. Toxic people can't stand boundaries because boundaries remind them they no longer have control. When you stop reacting, they lose their influence. When you stop explaining, they lose their grip. When you stop giving access, they lose their comfort. Guarding your purpose requires the courage to disappoint people who benefit from your lack of boundaries. They'll call you distant, selfish, or changed, and they'll be right. You are changed. Because once you taste peace, you refuse to go back to chaos. Guarding your purpose is not about isolation. It's about elevation. You can't climb to your next level while carrying every relationship from your last one. Some people are not bad. They're just not built for your next chapter. They can't go where you're going because they don't have the mindset for it. And if you force them to come along, they'll slow you down or sabotage your focus. Guarding your purpose means loving them from afar while continuing to move forward. The more you protect your peace, the more power you have to create. Creativity flows from calmness. Inspiration thrives in quiet hearts. When you stop giving toxic people permission to disturb your spirit, you give your purpose room to breathe. You start thinking clearly, hearing divine direction, and trusting your intuition again. And soon, what used to distract you becomes something you don't even notice anymore because your focus is fully locked on your calling. Your purpose doesn't need everyone's approval to be valid. Sometimes guarding it means walking alone for a season. You'll lose some people, but you'll gain yourself. You'll realize that solitude is not punishment, it's preparation. Every great calling requires separation before elevation. When you learn to guard your purpose, you stop being afraid of being alone because you understand that divine growth often happens in quiet spaces. Toxic people often test your emotional discipline. They'll provoke you just to see if they can still access the old version of you. Guarding your purpose means refusing to regress. You don't have to explain yourself, prove yourself, or defend yourself. The smartest response is your progress. Your consistency will confuse them more than your arguments ever could. When you guard your peace, your results start speaking for you. When you guard your purpose, you start valuing your time differently. You stop spending hours trying to convince people to believe in you. You stop seeking validation from people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You start investing your time into prayer, growth, and work that aligns with your calling. Because the truth is, toxic people can't destroy a purpose that's protected by discipline. They can distract you, but they can't defeat you unless you give them your attention. Sometimes guarding your purpose means unlearning your old habits of people-pleasing. You have to let go of the need to fix, explain, or rescue everyone. Some people are addicted to dysfunction, and they'll pull you into it if you're not careful. Guarding your purpose is knowing when to walk away and trust that distance is a form of healing. You're not abandoning them. You're choosing obedience to your calling over attachment to chaos. You can't fulfill your destiny if you're constantly drained by distractions. Guarding your purpose requires you to be intentional about where your energy goes. Every yes you give to something meaningless is a no to something divine. You must become a gatekeeper of your mind, heart, and time, because what you entertain today shapes who you become tomorrow. If you want to live in purpose, you have to protect it with prayer, awareness, and boundaries that keep your spirit strong. The more you guard your purpose, the more you align with divine timing. You stop rushing, forcing, and fighting battles that aren't yours. You learn to trust that peace is the path, not the pause. Toxic people may still try to distract you, but you'll notice their power fading because your focus is fortified. What used to offend you now refines you. What used to drain you now teaches you. Because when you guard your purpose, You rise above every distraction that was designed to derail your destiny.